So essentially, based on such weather conditions, it seems that the fighting will continue for a few more weeks, because we see that everything is kind of happening under the accompaniment of these negotiations, because Trump made another statement today saying that he will have a phone conversation on March 18th. And the Americans mentioned today that 10 yards remain until the ceasefire. And indeed, in fact, there is a lot of news showing that the parties are very actively and intensely negotiating with numerous updates. Because, for example, today Bloomberg reported that Putin is allowing some Western funds to sell Russian securities a day before the planned talks with Trump regarding a possible ceasefire. According to the published decree, Putin allowed the US-registered fund 683 Capital Partners, LP, to acquire securities of Russian companies that previously belonged to approximately the same Western investment and hedge funds. Among the funds granted the right to sell their assets were Franklin Advisors, Templeton Asset Management, and Bailey Gifford Overseas. The decree also authorizes 2 Russian entities to conduct transactions. In short, there is a clear and unmistakable thawing of business activity, and it is targeted. In spirit, you to me, I to you. They froze this. Trump is freezing this judge of the International Court who imposed sanctions on Putin. On their part, they are indeed conducting negotiations with Iran, trying to engage in talks with Iran. Simultaneously, we now see a commotion starting with the Houthis. This is also a psychological and not only a pressure element on Iran. Trump has almost certainly declared war on the Houthis, saying that we know Iran is behind the Houthis. So, they are trying to play their games with their interests on multiple different chessboards in various ways at once, in a strategic manner. In this context, what do you, in your opinion, believe or think does Ukraine potentially enter this game, and if so, with what cards? Because when the Americans threatened us with severe consequences, the newly established administration threatened to stop arms supplies. Many here said that, in fact, indeed, actually, and furthermore, as a result, it was believed that, including the top leadership and other key figures, that we can confidently and effectively fight until the end of the year with the supplies and reserves that were made earlier. In this context, how do you assess our resilience? What do you think about it from a military point of view?
Well, look, if everything on the Russian side was stable, meaning they have the same monthly reinforcements and so on, meaning they are not increasing their troop numbers. We are not increasing our troop numbers at this moment, and then everything would be quite stable. But the problem is that it seems that apparently by the middle of the year, the Russian army will have a significant and pressing major personnel issue. A major personnel problem. I'm not talking about the number of infantry primarily. Their headquarters aren't particularly dying, but the infantry is dying with enviable regularity. And the mechanisms for recruitment, fundamentally speaking, hiring mercenaries, will no longer be sufficient in order to maintain the previous troop levels. And this is also about the PSO, because they fulfilled it by 107% and so on. Well, this is about the PSO. Well, it's obvious from the nature of the enemy personnel captured recently that their quality has decreased so significantly. For example, my 24th Brigade is currently in Yar. It's been fighting there for how long? A year and a half already, right? Or for a period of more than 12 months, I need to recall, at least more than a year, in Chasov Yar. The main enemy is the 98th Division from Ivanovo and Kostroma. Initially, there were Rexes there, paratroopers of good quality, of high caliber, so to speak. Lately, everything we encounter there is a complete misunderstanding. And firstly, literally in the second week after signing the contract, they're already sitting here with us nice and warm. There is no preparation, nothing at all. The average age has jumped by about 15 years. Of these so-called paratroopers, all the paratroopers there are already 50 plus from Ivanovo. So if they are doing any replenishment, soon they will have 70-year-olds in their ranks. That means it's already a qualitatively different material, and they only resort to such when there is no normal option. Therefore, it is absolutely certain that Putin is running out of troops to conduct the kind of combat operations he has been carrying out since the beginning of October 2023, when he started the offensive on Avdiivka. That is, constant intense fighting, So if you remember from that moment, the daily average losses have been about 1,500 people per day, according to our data. From the General Staff, I can tell you that this figure, as I have been reliably informed by the relevant and competent authorities, is indeed very close to the actual reality. Just knowing how it is formed in a manner that is undoubtedly and verifiably very close to reality. This type of combat operation is the only one that had external success because it is precisely external success, like acquiring a small settlement, a couple of square kilometers, even if it's 70 square kilometers per week. At this rate, it will take them 3 more years to take the Donetsk region, you understand? And at this rate, they would need to sacrifice 800,000 soldiers for that very Donetsk region. Therefore, to say that sacrificing 800,000 soldiers while also taking an agglomeration consisting of 1, 2, 3, 4 cities, well, perhaps, to call this indeed a victory would be indeed very difficult. So he is in a positional deadlock in this case. However, this does not mean that he literally has no way out. He does have a way out. If he is not given the opportunity to exit the war, then he has the option to turn Russia into North Korea and switch to a war communism model. Anyone who says he won't succeed is deceiving either themselves or everyone else. Because Putin definitely has the tools to turn on the mechanisms of war communism, like for the motherland, for Stalin, all the buildings, all the factories are churning out shells and cartridges while there, until there is a great victory, and so on. And this very war will give him the opportunity, this power, to apply this power, as it were.